and welcome to the Goldenrod Podcast. I'm Ben. As always, I'm joined by fellow Pokemon enthusiast Conor to bring you some of the latest and greatest Pokemon news and feel laughs along the way. This week, we're doing Game Freak's job for them for free as we bring you our thoughts on how we would have designed the Teal Mask. And in our usual Devil's Advocate section, we'll be arguing whether the next Pokemon game should be 2D. As always, you can jump to a topic using the timestamps in the description below. And before I ask you how you are, Conor, I want to play a little game with you. How many Spotify ratings do you think we've had?
Is it still 0?
No, it's 10.
It's 10. We've had 10. Okay.
We've had 10, and we've got a rating of 4.8, which I stumbled upon earlier on. I was like, proper chuffed with that.
I'll take it.
I'll take it as well. I mean, one of them is mine.
Which is the 4-star one, which means everybody else rated us as 5 stars, so we're fine.
5-star, exactly. Yeah, I didn't want to start off too high because then they'd be like, hold on, this looks a bit sus. So I started at 1, and then slowly each week I put it up to 2, then 3, then 4, because then it looks legitimate. It's like, oh, they've engaged this person. He keeps coming back
and improving his score,
just like we keep improving the podcast, right?
Naturally, how that works.
I do want to plug, like, if you haven't already, please do consider, rating us on whatever the platform you use to listen to this podcast. And of course, if you're on YouTube, leave a like. This week, shall we kick it off with a couple of corrections from our review of the Teal Mask last week? I think that's probably the best
place to start.
Okay, sounds good. What have you got for us, Conor? Have you got something then?
So one of the big ones is the fact that we said last week that you had to complete the game. You had to complete the main story of Scarlet and Violet before you did the Teal Mask. That is not the case. Now, I will say I did a quick Google at the time. You guys have always seen me. I'm always trying to check my facts as I say them. Got that one wrong. It does change my opinion slightly, but I'll allow you to go into yours in a second. The fact that you can go there early means that the teams for Carmine and her brother aren't as bad as I initially thought. Like, having a level 60 Vulpix doesn't feel great, but if it's one of the first things you can do in the game, sure, okay. It also retracts my statement on the island of Kitakami not being that fun to explore because you have to have fully kitted out Koraidon and Miraidon to do it. That not being the case actually leads me to think I'd have had more fun exploring Kitakami before I picked all those up. So Kitakami as an experience throughout the story could be more fun, I imagine, than the experience I had of it as a post-game experience.
Okay. I think that's a very apt way to put it. It doesn't change my overall opinion of the DLC. But one of the things I did mention is that in the review was I kind of wish that you were forced not to ride your ride Pokemon in the DLC, because then it would encourage you to explore on foot, and instead of going up the mountain, you go almost around the mountain either way, and then ascend it from behind. And I feel like going there earlier on and suddenly your ride Pokemon doesn't have all the abilities, hasn't got the high jump, the speed up, it can't do the rock climb or the surf. I think it would benefit the DLC. So I take the point that actually you probably would have had more enjoyment going there sooner. And again, it would have felt a bit more challenging if you're doing it early game, because one of the issues I had was you turn up there, you battle these trainers in post game, and they've got only 1 or 2 Pokemon, and they're all like first form evolutions, and it takes away some of the challenge. Now, it does lead us on to a bit of an issue where, like, this game's been out for 6 months now, 7 months. No, however long it's been, it's for some time. And like, if Game Freak should have been aware of that when designing this and gone, okay, how many of the people buying this DLC do we think will have completed the game? And then you make the decision of, okay, do we make it post-game, or do we try to implement some kind of system which is what we've got, where depending on when you go, there is some kind of scaling, but it's not a true level scaling. It's almost like it's kind of like grading. Like, it doesn't matter whether you get like, I don't know, 100 or 80. You're just bracketed into A in GCSEs. Whereas they probably should have had something a bit more, okay, let's look at your team. Let's look at how many badges you've collected. Okay, and therefore we slot you into this category where the Pokemon are, you know, a bit of a challenge, but not to the point where you're going to struggle. And I think that is one of the major criticisms I think of this, not of the DLC, but how it's been implemented, because the designing team, by trying to do this DLC so you can do it at any point, it leaves it with the same issues that the main game has, of because you can kind of do it whenever. The teams are just kind of all over the place. Yeah. And I honestly would have preferred it if they came out and either said, okay, you've got the DLC, we recommend doing this, you know, at levels whatever, or before these story beats. And then I would have turned around and gone, okay, well, I'll start a new save file, I think, and I'll go into it almost fresh. Or they should have made the alternative decision of it's post-game. You need to have completed the main game, and therefore we don't need to scale all these Pokemon down. So,
counter-argument, and this is where Devil's Advocate, such a lovely section here because it means I get to play it all the way through. There will be people who go out and buy these games for the DLC. And they're banking on that. They've clearly decided after Sword and Shield, okay, DLC makes us more money than a third game. I assume a lot of that comes down to the fact that when the DLC comes out, people go out and buy the base game to play the DLC. Those people should get to experience what they've bought as soon as they, or at least some portion of it, as soon as they want. If people go out and buy the game and they buy the DLC with it, do you really want to turn around to someone and say, okay, you spent 30 extra pounds for something you can't do until about 20, 30 hours from now?
I think it's a valid point.
And I assume that's why they split it into parts. So part 1 you can do whenever, part 2 is post-game. So you get a chunk of that DLC that you pay for right at the start. Which
it's a tough one, and I think I haven't got any data behind this, but I agree. I do think that there is a proportion of people who, you know, will look at, okay, the DLC's come out and therefore it's closer to a complete game, therefore I'm going to buy it. I used to do all the time. I don't know if anyone remembers back in the day on the 360, like the big titles like Borderlands and Fallout, where they would release, you know, quarterly or half yearly or yearly DLC. But then if you waited, you could get the complete edition, which had literally the base game and all the DLC. And that was my go-to, because you felt like you were getting more value for money, because you literally bought the game and you have access to 100% of the base game and all the DLC for a fraction of the cost. And it works really well. So I think there's a valid argument there that there are some people that are waiting for the DLC to then buy the base game. However, I kind of feel like by aiming towards them, it's at the detriment of the first players through the gate that completed the game, that have all these high-power Pokemon, and are now looking for another reason to come back to Scarlet and Violet like me. And this did it. The DLC got me back into it, but it had issues. And I would have preferred if they'd have just gone, this is post-game, it's high level, therefore it's more of a challenge, and the area is designed around that on the basis of, okay, the chances are the players coming into this will have unlocked all the features of Miraidon and Koraidon, so how can we implement that functionality in a new and innovative way to explore the map? And it feels like, well, it doesn't feel like it. We didn't get that. We didn't get a map that allows you to take advantage of the fact that this is post-game. Because like you said, it's not built around post-game.
To be fair, with that thought in mind, Scarlet and Violet, there are places that you can go explore, but you can explore more, and you can explore more easily with Miraidon and Koraidon.
Yes.
It didn't feel like you could explore on them in Kitakami. It felt like you just cut through the center of it.
Well, this goes back to that amazing video you did a long time ago of why HMs should be re-implemented into Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
And the basic argument was that the HMs allow you to re-explore areas you've already been to flesh out those areas and unlock trinkets and treasures. And Miraidon and Koraidon's abilities should function in that way. But he never felt like that in Paldea or the Teal Mask. Definitely not on the Teal Mask of, okay, I've got all these new abilities, therefore I should easily be able to get to places that aren't accessible early game. Like, for example, having a body of ocean across Kitakami that basically locks part of it out for newer players. And then for newer players, they've got half the island they can explore straight off the bat. And then the other half they have to work towards. And on the flip side, for people like us, you breeze through that first half because you've already got powerful Pokemon. You've already unlocked all those, features for ride Pokemon. But then the other half, because it's locked behind that progression barrier, you can put high powerful Pokemon. You can put more Titan Pokemon. You can put some of those difficult trainers as well. And it's just a shame that they didn't do something like that instead of what we got, which was, okay, we'll kind of put, depending on when you approach this, the trainers just get a level boost, but the Pokemon don't get any kind of benefit from the levels outside of just more HP.
Okay.
And therefore, there's no challenge. That's my issue with it.
So, interestingly, what I want to get to is the fact that we're now saying because Kitakami scales, the game suffers for it. The gaming experience suffers. Which is kind of an interesting point when we look back to our reviews of Scarlet and Violet and think we got annoyed that it didn't scale. So I just want to pick apart, like, what are our thoughts there? Why is the scaling that's implemented not appeasing that need for us?
Okay. So I think for me is because it's lazy scaling.
It's levels only.
It's levels only. It should be, okay, depending on where you are in the game, the Pokemon in the DLC, in the main game and the DLC benefit from a couple of things. So extra levels, EV spread, evolutions, items, secret abilities, the number of Pokemon your opponent has, whether or not they terrestrialize, what typing those terrestrializations are. And it's a real shame. I was listening to another podcast that basically one of their issues with the game was that Game Freak has moved into this open world experience, which I'm on board with for the most part if it's implemented well. But trainers are kind of stuck in this limbo now because trainers used to be a barrier in the routes that you went down or the caves that you explored, but they were a way to kind of boost your level so you had that progression throughout the game. But then they've implemented the trainers in this of, well, they're not mandatory anymore. Okay, right, so they're not mandatory. That's fine. But because you can go off on and explore anywhere, you don't have an idea of whether or not they are a challenge, if they're difficult. Whereas on the routes in the previous games, you knew that, okay, well, I've just beaten the last gym. This is the route I have to go to. So therefore, the trainer should be roughly the level I am. And depending if you're underleveled, it's a bit of a challenge. If you're overleveled, you'll breeze through. But then on the next route or the next gym, those levels catch up with you. But we don't get that in this. And I think that one of my criticisms and one of the easy fixes for this DLC is to look at the challenge of it and scale it based on the progression the character has already made. And therefore you won't have the issues of people coming in going, okay, this is a bit too difficult for me. And on the flip side, okay, this is too easy for me. And by trying to appease everybody, I feel like they've appeased nobody.
Okay.
Do you think that's a fair point, or am I just...
So, no. You're entitled to your opinion, obviously. I think the teams do... And the thing is, that's where we're coming down to, is the teams should change. The composition, whether it be the Pokemon themselves, the held items, all that kind of stuff. The teams need to change, because it feels really weird that at the beginning of the game, whether you start it at level 16 or whether you start it at level 60, Carmine starts with a Vulpix. And for somebody who goes to a battle-centric academy, which will be post-game stuff, and we know we're going to go out there and everybody's going to have level 60, 70 Pokemon. Everyone. It feels really odd that you're supposed to be connecting this character to that place, and it fails in the storytelling in that sense. So I think there's an argument of, yes, it might have been a better experience to play it through early, but the problem you've then got is, do the characters fit the story?
Yeah, I see the Carmine and Kieran. Like, Kieran's story, I feel, would actually work a bit better by taking on this story early game, because by taking it on late game, he proves that he can, by having level 60 Pokemon that he evolves, he proves that he is a competent trainer, and for that reason, he has a chance at taming Ogerpon. And I still maintain what I said in the last piece of DLC, that, like, Kieran should have had Ogerpon, withstanding his twist at the end. Leading up until that, he was making all the right beats to be like, yeah, he should probably be the trainer. By having a lower level, it kind of, and him building his team, it almost complements that story that you've got of him developing and growing as a trainer, and therefore would be a suitable candidate to be the trainer of Ogerpon.
Yep.
But if you flip it and it's like, oh, he's already got level 60 Pokemon, but he hasn't evolved them, like, it's almost a criticism of Kieran as a trainer, because it's like, well, why haven't you evolved these Pokemon? You're not a very good trainer, are you? Like, and
so the solution then is still to change out the Pokemon. Make him a different character through his Pokemon. Use the in-world storytelling. Change the Pokemon from somebody who has level 16s to somebody who has level 60s. And the thing is, he can have level 60 Pokemon and still feel weak, because he goes to Blueberry Academy, because his sister is that much stronger than him. He's got a strong team, but it's not broken like everybody else is running.
And there are some challenging fights in the DLC.
Yeah,
but they're all, once you've completed the story, you can track down the Ogre clan, and I think there's 7 or 8 of them off the top of my head. And these are the kind of challenges that I want in Pokemon, because they aren't predominantly themed around. They all have a gimmick. Like, you have one that is based around a sun team, one that's based around like a dark/ghost team, one that's built around setting up a rain dance team. Like, they have got these challenging fights. So Game Freak acknowledges there's an appetite for this type of challenge, but why have that in a almost, and it's not post game, but the only way I can think to describe it, why have those challenging fights in the post game of my post game, which is the DLC? Does that make sense? Like, for me as a player that has come into this DLC, that has basically done everything there is to do in Scarlet and Violet, and is now looking for that next challenge, it's not there.
But is that not because the true post game is coming in part 2?
Perhaps, but it goes back to what we said last time. We can only review on what we've got at the moment, and like, for me, like, the next piece of DLC might have exactly what I'm looking for. I might go into that thinking, and you know what? Actually, I'm gonna put my heart on my sleeve here and make a prediction that's probably wrong. That piece of DLC probably is for me, because, like we said, you have to have completed the main game of Scarlet and Violet to access the what's it called? The second piece of DLC. I can't remember what it's called now.
Indigo Disk.
Indigo Disk. So I'm fully expecting to see Pokemon that are at least in their 70s. But again, I've still got a load of level 100 Pokemon. So and I know there's an Elite Four there, and there's Kieran's probably going to be the champion of that, I'd imagine, just to prove how strong he is.
Okay, I'm going to throw an idea out there, and they're not going to implement it, but I'm going to throw it out there. Blueberry Academy has the ability to level Pokemon to be more like an online battle. We've seen this kind of thing happen in the battle resorts and the battle frontiers. They set all your Pokemon to level 50.
Yeah.
That's how Blueberry Academy fights.
That's what I want. I'd be happy with that.
So you can come in with whatever Pokemon you want. They get leveled to 50.
Yeah. So what I like about that as well is there is still a benefit to leveling to a level 100 because you get the moves. But then you just get scaled down. You've still got the EVs, you've still got the held items, you've still got the moves and abilities. And you're forced to battle almost on an even playing field, or more even than it currently is. And you're right, they won't implement that. But I would love to see something like that, because it would do away with some of the issues of... It's an easy way, I feel, to implement level scaling. And I know why... I don't know why. I can guess why they've not implemented level scaling, and it's because it's more work. It's, okay, there's, if we're talking about the base game, there's 18 different things that you can do. Okay, right, we've got to do level scaling based on, okay, which one did they do first, which one did they do second, and then that implements on all the other ones. I don't think it's complicated to do. I think it's just time consuming. And
I think it depends how deep you go with it.
Yeah.
Because if you're talking about changing up the Pokemon they have, changing up the levels, changing up the moveset, changing up the strategy, changing up the held items, 18 gyms that can be done in 18 different points, that's a lot of maths to do.
It is, yes.
And Pokemon don't have that many people working on the game still.
So, funnily enough, just on that, I read the other day it's 169 staff.
Okay. Do you know what's crazy that I didn't find out till the other day?
What?
We still argue that Heart Gold, Soul Silver are probably some of the better games in the franchise, right?
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, I had 12 developers.
No. Where did you get? No, really?
I believe I heard that on Digino Gaming, which, as far as they go,
what?
Fairly good. Fairly good sources of information.
Yeah. Wow. Like, seriously, when you look at the... Okay, so let's just do maths here, because why not? Okay, so I know it's not, but at the 12 developers, okay, and you times that by 10, it gives you 120. You know what? I can do 12 times tables. Times it by 12, okay, 144. So we're closer to 169. Is Scarlet and Violet 12 times better than Heart Gold and Soul Silver? I know this is very black and white, okay? I know that, but I just kind of want to throw it out there. It's not like the number... They've increased the number of developers, but has the quality improved? Can you argue that the quality's improved? I don't know.
I don't think so. Well...
Depends what you mean.
It depends what you mean by quality.
Yes, yeah. Okay. Do the pixel graphics of Heart Gold and Soul Silver look better than the modern graphics that we've got of Scarlet and Violet?
Oh, see, now you can't bring that up because that's an argument we're going to make for later.
Okay, fair enough. But I know my answer, and I'm sure we'll come on to that in Devil's Advocate later on. I tell you what I'd like to move on to is, shall we... I'll read out some of what the listeners have said about their experience with the Teal Mask, and then we can start to figure out how we would have approached the Teal Mask. So, a couple here. First one from Chaos Dragon. Regarding the DLC, there's no point in releasing them separately because Teal Mask is so sparse. I can only justify the game in the state it is in if it was designed for the next Switch, but they had to water it down part way through to make it work. Short of that, there's no excuse for the laundry list of shortcomings with this release. Do we take them one at a time, or should we do them all at once?
Take them one at a time. Why not?
Okay. I want to start on that point about the Switch, because funnily enough, because of the Xbox court case that's going on at the moment. Information has been leaked that a number of developers have seen Switch 2. They've seen it's not called Switch 2, whatever the successor to the Switch is, it's in development. It is happening. And likely to be in the next couple of years, I'd imagine, based on just the development cycle and when consoles come out. I don't think that's the case for this. I don't think this was developed for the next version of Switch and then watered down. I just can't, because I just can't see that being the case because Game Freak and the Pokemon Company know they have this strict cycle of, okay, every 3 years roughly, we release the next game. They knew this deadline was coming. They knew which version of the hardware, because Nintendo would talk to Game Freak and the Pokemon Company and go, we're looking at a launch window of this date for the next Switch console. Okay, right. Well, then you play around that and go, okay, well, we're a year ahead of this. Let's release it. So I don't think that's the case. I might be completely wrong.
If anything, I think this was specifically designed to be towards the end of the Switch's life cycle.
Agreed.
To sell a bunch of them right at the very end.
Yep.
And I can almost guarantee that the first game out on the Switch 2, if we want to call it that, won't be mainline.
No, it won't be. It won't be. They'll do what they did with Let's Go. It's a nice, simple game that has a small contained scope with a limited number of Pokemon that gives them the opportunity to get to grips with the new hardware.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not that's a remake or some kind of spin-off, I'd imagine it'd be some kind of spin-off. That is what they'll do, and I think it's the right decision to make, to be honest with you. Because the first game that any developer releases on a new console, you only have to look at the first game they release and then the game that they release towards the end of that console's life cycle and the improvements that have been made as they start to get to grips with the platform and how they develop for it. And it's why typically the games that should be released at the end of a console cycle are some of the best you will see, because the developers just know head and tails how to develop for that platform. Obviously, if that's the case, Game Freak didn't get the memo for Scarlet and Violet, unfortunately, which is a real shame.
Cutting.
Pardon?
Cutting words.
just in the throat. So there's a point there about they should have released the two pieces of DLC together. I don't completely agree with that, but I can understand the point, because it is a continuation. The next piece of DLC is a continuation of this one, and it feels like it would have been nice to go from this straight into the next one. Do you agree?
It's a difficult one to say, because part of me is like, at the moment, I'm disappointed with the experience I've had, and I've paid for it already. So I'm in a state of annoyance. But would I have rather waited? I think personally, I'd have rather waited. I could have waited till November to get it all in one go. I don't think. Yeah, I don't know. It's a hard one to press. I think they should have probably released it together. I don't think it does it any benefit being in two parts.
No, agreed. I think like maybe if they wanted to go, okay, there's a shorter time frame between the two, I think I would have been happy with this. And I can understand why they make you pay for both pieces, because if like I know I would have bought the second piece anyway, but like there's only so much that even I'm willing to take as a fan of Pokemon, as a parent whose daughter very much loves Pokemon and can overlook a lot of the criticisms that adults have of the game. Even I would have been hard pressed to go, oh yeah, let's buy the second piece of DLC, because at that point you're just rewarding bad practices, unfortunately.
Is this not talking about practices? Is this not effectively Season Pass Lite?
It is, yeah. But Season Pass. But typically, whenever I've done a Season Pass in the past, it always feels like you get a lot out of it. that you get more than you are putting in, which is the monetary value. Whereas this, in the moment, I don't feel like I've gotten that value out of it. So on that basis, I'd probably say it is a season pass light, and you could describe it like that. It doesn't feel like that because you're not getting a lot of quality out of it.
Yet.
Or a lot of things out of it. Yet. Let's move on to the next comment that we've had. Courtesy of Mika Bryant, who I know is probably jumping out of their chair right now because they did leave a previous comment saying that whenever they hear their name on the podcast, like, it takes them out of it. So this is a bit of a long one, so strap in, folks. While this DLC has technically got more to it than the Isle of Armor, it still felt like a bit of a nothing sandwich. They included more new Pokemon than the Isle of Armor, but it still felt very underwhelming. The town was nice, but the region is as barren as Paldea. More points of interest around the map are needed. Signs of human life. You're both very right. Empty biomes with wild Pokemon and no more. It's not terrible, just an unfinished feeling. They did say that they liked the cave networks, though. Something that they did get right in Scarlet and Violet too, although they serve no purpose. And a little sign off. Perrin needs to be in the next Pokemon Snap as your lead or mentor. I already miss her. Perrin does need to be in more Pokemon games. Characters need to be in more Pokemon games. They need to cross over with one another. We've said this before. It's one of the good things about the anime is you're able to reintroduce characters and get them to, cross-pollinate the different, I don't know if that's the right word, but get them going in and out of different, games and whatnot.
As a kind of counter spoiler, some of the leaks have come out around the Indigo Disk now. People have data mined the DLC and have got bits of information. So we know we're getting, it has been advertised that we're getting a club room effectively, and you can have different people come to visit you at that club room and be your mentor.
Right.
I won't say who is there, but apparently there are no Unovan trainers there. There's nobody from Unova coming over, unfortunately.
Despite the fact we are going to
Unova. So there's no Sharon, there's no Bianca, there's no
of course not.
Professor Juniper. It's Professor Juniper and
Juniper? Yeah.
None of those are coming over, none of the gym leaders, nothing like that. Big shame, but such is the way.
One of the comments that Mika Bryant said was about they included new Pokemon. Do you think there was enough new Pokemon? Do you think it needed more? So we got what? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, if you include Dipplin.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, 8 new Pokemon.
I believe so. I believe 8.
Out of 200 available on the island. And most of them are story related.
Yes. It's a difficult one to say. Do I need more than that in there? I think Hisui felt like the right number for me for a whole new land. This obviously wasn't a whole new land. But was it? It's a hard one to press on that. Doesn't need more Pokemon.
See, for me, because we don't know where this takes place, do we? We know it's in Kitakami.
We assume it's somewhere between Johto and Sinnoh.
See, I think this is one of my issues with it. If it was literally just an island off the coast of Paldea, like Isle of Armor, I wouldn't expect a load of new Pokemon because it's just an offshoot of the main region that you are exploring. But by trying to do what they've done of, okay, it's somewhere out there, but nobody really knows where it is, it opens up the question for me of, well, why isn't there more new undiscovered Pokemon on this in this region? And if it was an island, I could forgive it, but it's not an island. Like one of the good things about this that I really liked is the fact it wasn't just an island in the middle of nowhere. They did what a lot of other open world games do of, okay, there you can see that there's something beyond the area you are in, but you just can't get there. And I like that. In fact, you got these big mountains that surround it, so it's this little enclosed area. But because of that, why aren't we seeing more new Pokemon just roaming and wandering in and discovering it? And I think like eight new Pokemon. It's a tough one. I think I would have preferred, to be honest with you, if they'd have just gone hero. You know, you got the 4 new Pokemon that are core to the story, and then you've got the Ursaluna, which is just a random Pokemon that has ended up here. So it's just so weird and unique, and just left it at that. Because by introducing just a handful of a Pokemon, it just what. Why them? Why them? If that, maybe I'm being pedantic. I feel like I'm being a bit pedantic here, but because the Isle of Armor was just literally you go there and you get Kubfu, Ursaluna, and that was it, wasn't it?
Slowpoke.
Slowpoke.
And then you get the 2 crowns that evolve it into both of its evolutions.
Yes. That felt like maybe it's just the Pokemon that were introduced. Actually, no, that's what it is. I know what my issue is here. It's the Pokemon that were introduced. Because you've got an evolution of Applin, which I don't feel was needed. Applin was complete in Sword and Shield.
Yeah, but you heard it might evolve again?
I have heard, because the Eviolite works on it, which
apparently so. I'm not sure if I'm in the camp of it's a bug.
What do you mean it's a bug? Oh, a bug. Oh, right. I thought you meant a bug Pokemon. I was
no.
It's Grass and Dragon. What are you on about?
Eviolite working might just be a bug.
I honestly think that's the case. It really wouldn't surprise me if that's the case. And then you've got Poltergeist and Sinistea, which are, while they had a great trailer to advertise them, they're just offshoots of Pokemon we've already had in some degree in Sword and Shield. I think that's my crux with it. Because the Isle of Armor was so contained with its Pokemon, it felt like, okay, these are exciting Pokemon. But what we've got are an evolution of something that already came before that was... I've used those Pokemon. I do enjoy Appleton. Appleton's a fantastic stall Pokemon that I really enjoy using. But I can't say I'm excited about an Applin or an evolution of Applin. I'm not excited about Sinistea and Poltergeist. I think that's maybe my issue here, is I would have preferred cutting them out and just having, here's the trio, here's the Ogerpon, and here's the Ursaluna. I think I would have preferred that. It would have been a stronger focus on new Pokemon.
See, I can't get on board with less being better.
Okay.
I think they gave us something. I kind of wish it was more, because again, as you say, it's supposed to be a new region, effectively. A very small part of a new region, but a new region nonetheless. And it didn't feel like any of the new regions we've faced before.
Okay.
I question as well the idea of only adding 100 new Pokemon outside. Is it 100 or is it like 50 new Pokemon outside of what was already available in Paldea?
It's so if you complete the Pokedex in Paldea, when you go to Kitakami, half the Pokedex is complete to 100. So there's an extra 100 Pokemon on top of what's available in Scarlet and Violet.
Okay. Does that not excite you in the slightest? The fact that some of old favorites are back? Like, I got excited to see Heracross. I won't lie. Granted, I could have already brought it over from Sinnoh, not Sinnoh, old Sinnoh, Hisui. There you go. Mm-hmm. I could have done that already, but it was cool to see.
Maybe that's on me then, because I imported all the Pokemon from home. So for me, it was like, I bring all the Pokemon from home in. Oh, I've only got about 8-9 Pokemon that I need to catch in this area. So maybe that's on me, actually, the fact that it feels like it's underwhelming in the number of Pokemon.
Genuine question then.
Okay.
And I hate throwing this out there, but did we just not play the game right?
Honestly, the more we're talking about it, the more it feels like this game, this piece of DLC is okay, you play this DLC after you've started the treasure hunt and maybe you've beaten one or two of the early games, which if that's the choice, they need to explain that. For the best experience of this game, of this piece of DLC, we recommend, and I've seen this on other pieces of DLC for other games where they go, before you play this, we recommend that you, and then it almost lists out a checklist of when you should do it, what level or what equipment you should have. And I would have preferred that because obviously they've gone into this and they are, they're game developers, but some of the stuff there will be storytellers. They've got a story. They want you to experience the base game and the DLC in a particular way, which I'm on board with that. I'm fine with them with almost hand-holding you, kind of nudging you in the directions you should go. But then if you don't want to follow that, you don't have to. But explain that. Like, and it's really disappointing because obviously I've come to the DLC, and I've flown through it. I'm over-leveled. I've already caught the majority of Pokemon, transferred them from home. So, like, at that point, the question becomes, well, am I at a disadvantage, or am I not rewarded for playing all the previous games and completing them? It's now to my detriment that I've played and completed previous Pokemon games.
Okay, fair.
Like, and part of me thinks that actually is a genuine answer because, as we know, every Pokemon game is someone's first Pokemon game. So am I just at the point now where I'm 9 generations in, and because of that, I'm seeing and experiencing issues and getting diminishing returns that first-time players are loving? Wow, look at this. I've completed Scarlet and Violet, my very first Pokemon game. And wow, now I get to go to this new area and catch an extra 100 new Pokemon.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the next comment. And then, so this is the last comment, and then we can kind of break down what we would have done. So, this comes courtesy of Tony over on YouTube. I agree with you, not being able to tell Kiki the truth really sucks, but I imagine it's for the character's art that will finish in the Indigo Disk, as he'll pull a Wally, and while you're getting stronger in your journey, he's getting stronger and becomes the champion of the Blueberry Academy, since there's a secret champion over there. So he's put secret in quotes, so I don't think the secret is out. I think
so.
It's
we've had what appears to be a champion revealed. You know, they wear a white coat. It's like opened up. They got a red vest on underneath, and they got a red fingerless glove on one hand. That's what we've seen of him so far. It's in one of the trailers. Okay. We're assuming that's a champion because it's in the Blueberry Academy fighting dojo ring thing that they've got. So we're assuming it's a champion. Yes, I agree. If it's going to be anyone, it's probably going to be Kieran. I think he does go back to school and be like, right, I'm going to be number one. Which feels really bad if I'm going to have to go there and beat him again.
I know, right? It's almost like I beat you in your home, and now I'm going to come and beat you in your second home. It's a poor kid.
And that's almost one of the problems with Pokemon not having choice. There could be other ways to resolve this other than fighting.
There was a way to resolve it in the first game, and it's
I fully agree. But I think you should be able to get to Kieran and be like, bro, let's just chill a moment.
Let me just explain, and we can come to an understanding that I was in fact wrong, and I'm apologizing to you. But we don't get that because in Pokemon games, free will and choice is an illusion, hidden behind two sets of dialogue options that are 99% the same. Which is a shame.
But you do have the choice of 600 odd Pokemon to pick from.
You do, which look better than ever. I must admit, they look better than ever. Now that I've got to play the DLC a little bit more, Some of the sprites look absolutely amazing. Apparently, Gliscor now just walks on the floor. Apparently,
Amazing.
I don't know if you've seen this, which is I'm perfectly fine with that because it's a ground type, and yet every previous iteration it's flown for some reason.
It's a flying type.
I know, yeah, sorry, but it's the fact that like it feels like to me that it just being a flying Pokemon isn't unique. A flying Pokemon that's on the ground, I feel, is like a unique way to
it's nice to see its ground type finally represented properly.
Yes. Let's talk about. I think that last comment brings us on to the characters. Let's discuss the characters. I feel because Carmine and Kieran. Let's discuss them because I feel like it's a difficult conversation to have fully because we haven't seen the culmination of their journeys.
Yeah.
But I feel like more than ever, our choices should have had more of an impact on their development and the story. And I really do feel like Kieran's turn could have been handled really well if the dialogue options worked in the way that other RPGs do, such as Mass Effect or Knights of the Old Republic, where you've got a good and a bad path. And I feel like you going down the bad path could have worked really well with Kieran just going, this guy isn't my friend, and I'm done with him, and now I'm going to become the very best. I'm going to show him. And I feel like that would have worked.
Okay.
What do you think?
I think the problem is that in my opinion, they're setting up for Kieran to be champion and for Carmine to be the head of some kind of quote-unquote evil team.
Okay.
I think when she goes back to school, she's going to have a whole bunch of grunts around her because that's how she treats you. And if you read her dialogue the way through it, she's like, yes, do this for me. Take this hit for me. Let your leader win. And she treats you like a grunt. So I feel like she's going to have her little crew and Kieran's going to be champion. So that's what they really wanted, was a story where you meet two people and you see them grow into something amazing by post-game. But
I like that. But
what we have as a story right now is just, I kind of travel around with two sociopaths.
Funnily enough, I stumbled upon someone discussing, and I missed this. I don't know how we missed talking about this in the review, but like at one point, Carmine literally says, "Yeah, I might be being mean to my younger brother, but at least I didn't punch him."
Yeah,
it's like, wait, what? And I completely glanced over that in the review, but it just sums up their sibling. I've had siblings. I'm pretty sure my brother will have used that argument at some point with my parents of, I did a bad thing, but at least I didn't do the worst bad thing. And it's just something that children do. And I think what doesn't help that scenario is the fact that Cameron is obviously supposed to be 14, 15, but because it's Pokemon, age is weird. How it's presented, you've got a 12-year-old kid that can save the world, so it feels like an adult threatening to punch a kid when actually it's a teenager punching another teenager, and
a preteen,
and like teenagers do daft things. Like everyone did something daft as a teenager. Don't deny it. But I feel like their story, it's another one of those aspects where you are along for the ride, but it doesn't feel like you can contribute to it.
No, and that's a valid statement, I think. They've set up these two character stories, which leads them to really interesting places, but it does make me feel like I'm not having that interesting of a time. Because everyone around me is having a better story.
Yeah, no, you make a really valid point there that I actually would have preferred, I think, if you got stranded on this island and it is more like Scarlet and Violet of, here are all the locations you can go to, have at it, rather than, okay, I need to follow this train to go here. I need to follow this train to then go there. And you basically just like drag by the hand around all these different places, forced to battle. And yet it is, like we said in the review, this is very much Kieran and Carmine's story, not yours.
Mm.
But because you are the mute protagonist, it's presented as if you're doing all the big actions, but you don't deserve to do the big actions.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, we both sat here and said that Kieran should have walked away with Ogerpon by the end of it. It's only because he becomes a little... words failed me there. It's only because he becomes a little psycho at the end. He's like, I don't care about this Pokemon's feeling. I want it from me because I earned it. Which is still a weird turn.
Yeah, I agree there, because up until the 11th hour, I was completely on board with, yeah, you just take Ogerpon. It makes sense for you to have Ogerpon. To then turn around and go, okay, no, you don't deserve Ogerpon now, but there's no dialogue options or anything else to kind of present that. And Kieran's turn is so extreme. And you know what? Actually, going back to like the characters, okay, so where we kind of I think landed on is you should probably play this DLC sooner rather than later to get the best benefit from it. But the issue then is you've potentially play this. You start, let's say you buy the game today, you play this piece of DLC in the next week, and then you go on to complete the main game, and then you've got all those months between this and that. Like, are Kieran and Carmine strong enough characters for you to remember enough about them to appreciate them and their arc in the second piece of DLC?
Oh, I think so.
Okay.
I think you have enough time with them, especially. Whether we go to Blueberry Academy and have the same reaction that you and I both had going to Kit Academy of, can I just have my other friends back, please? The people I actually like, the people who, yes, had their issues, but actually worked through them instead of just, I don't know. It's hard when you compare Kieran to Arvin. But Arvin has a positive character arc, and in this story, Kieran has a negative character arc. And that's not a bad thing to have. It's okay for people to have a negative character arc. I just don't... It comes down to execution again.
Yes.
But then the question is, what would we have done differently?
I think this is the okay. There's two main issues I think that I don't think we can resolve, which is unfortunate. The first part is, yes, this character's had a negative character arc, but we've only seen one half of the DLC. For all we know, they flip it around, and you know their growth comes in the next piece of DLC. This DLC was setting up this character of, you're going to hate them now, but you're going to love them by the end, because you get to see the positive journey they go in the second half and the realization of what they've done, and they become a better person for it. But also the other thing we can't control is dialogue options, and I think because of those, we're limited with what we can do with the characters. I don't think I would... The problem... that's my problem, I think, is not so much the characters, it's the fact that we've seen half of their journey and we can't control the half of the journey we've had.
Okay, so you would love to see dialogue options finally come to Pokemon. Like, dialogue options that matter. Yeah,
I would have done, because then at least, like, if Kieran had reacted that way because of something I'd said or done, I would have been like, okay, fair enough. Like, I've made a mistake, or I've done something to set him off. And while I might not like where his character's going, I can acknowledge that it's because of me, which I can't acknowledge in the current state of the DLC, because it isn't me. It was Carmine choosing to lie and force me to lie, and the granddad just being like, yeah, whatever. I think that's my issue there. So maybe it's not so much with the story and the character, it's the mechanic. Again, it's the mechanics.
Okay, let's reframe this then.
Okay.
So how do we tell the same story? So Kieran still ends up having his negative character arc, but we remove that section. We remove the bit where we are forced to lie to him. How do we tell that story without that bit?
Oh, I think the way you tell that story is that you almost split Kieran and Carmine so they're on opposite ends. Kieran is so obsessed with Ogerpon, being right and being the one that is the good guy, and then you've got Carmine on the side of history going, Kieran, you're wrong. The history tells us that these 3 Pokemon defeated Ogerpon, and that's where that conflict comes in of these 2 characters butting heads, and you as the main character choose Carmine's side. And the way you do that is through all the trailers that we've had, all the build up is, yeah, Carmine's obviously the right one, because then it makes the twist more impactful and makes Kieran's thought that you've betrayed him even more impactful, because you as the player have chosen the wrong side. And then what you have, despite all of that, maybe the twist is, for whatever reason, I don't know how, Ogerpon still chooses you, and that's when Kieran just flips, because then that would make sense. I've dedicated my life, my time, all my effort to you, and yet you still chose this other trainer. Of course I'm going to be peeved off. Of course I'm going to come back in the second piece of DLC on my villain arc, and it's going to feel like it's not deserved. Deserved's the wrong word. What people like in stories is they like a villain that you can in some way relate to. Whether or not it's their past, whether or not it's their ambitions or their goals, it's a villain where, okay, I get why you're the villain, and I can agree with some of your thoughts or motivations, but I can't get behind what you're doing. And that's where we should have gone with Kieran.
So I think you're going to struggle picking the side of the loyal 3 and then still getting Ogerpon to join you at the end and have that feel like a satisfying story. So there's a part of me that feels like we've overcomplicated it with the liar story. It could quite easily have been Kieran can be part of the group and he can travel around with you, but he fights in the first Titan fight style thing that we have when all the loyal 3 are bigger. Or in fact, even when you first meet the loyal 3 and they're beating up Ogerpon and they're kicking him in, it would make sense if Kieran jumped in first and Kieran lost, and then you had to come in and defend him, and then they team up and Carmine joins you, and then they run off, and Kieran's suddenly at a point of, I'm a part of this, but I'm not a significant part of this. I'm not helping. And Kieran, throughout it, watches you and Carmine take on these Titan fights, and it's you 2 that are winning. And he's not strong enough to take part. And you're clearly getting this relationship with Ogerpon that just happens naturally. It's fair. So towards the end of the game, he's like, well, hang on, I worked with Ogerpon. I was there the whole time. Why is it choosing you? Is it because you're stronger than me? Is it because you won the fight? I can win a fight. If that's what Ogerpon needs me to show, I can win a fight. Fight me. Fight me now. I will prove it to it, because that's clearly what it wants. And it allows Kieran to be part of the story. You don't have to have him go off and hate you for reasons you didn't control. It's just a natural progression of somebody who already feels like a younger sibling. We all know, well, if you've got older siblings, you know that feeling of, I'm not as good as them and I'm never going to be as good as them because they've got years on me, and that's how that works. But I assume that Kieran is also somebody who doesn't get a lot of friends at school. He's very shy. He doesn't put himself out there a lot. So he's met you. You still have this experience. Carmine still joins your story at the same time. But you just remove the liar segment. Kieran just gets slowly pushed further to the back Not by you, maybe by Carmine, but she's not being outright mean to him. She's not punching him. So you don't say anything. You let it go, because they're siblings. You don't get involved in sibling matters because you don't know the situation. And then we realize at the end, oh, actually, no, Kieran has been struggling with this, and there's nothing I can do now. I can't talk him out of this situation. I'll fight him. And then he goes, no, I'm out. I'm done. I lost. It is because I'm not strong enough. And it's all about what's in his head. Because the thing is, at the moment, he's right. He's right. People were mistreating him. We did mistreat him. He did deserve Ogerpon over us. All of that is valid. I want it to get to a point where Kieran actually doesn't understand the situation. He is allowing the voices in his head to mislead him. He is allowing his ego to get in the way. And then that still allows him to go off, become the champion, get beaten again, and then he has his full breakdown of, I don't get it, why am I still losing? And we can deal with it then. I think the Lyra revealed story makes the whole thing weaker. There you go.
Wow. I for those of you watching on YouTube, you'll just see me like bobbing my head up and down, like agreeing, drawing all of that. Like that was absolutely phenomenal. I think it fixes some of the issues that I have with, I think, the poor writing of those characters and the situations they're forced into for plot convenience.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't have anything else to add to that, Connor. That was absolutely absolutely fantastic. What else would you change?
Okay, the big one for me is the side quests.
Yes.
Even if we just change the ones that we've already got, the couple who want to see the lovey-dovey Pokemon, I think they should have been asking for more.
Mm-hmm.
And they should have had, and that could have been quite fun. Here's a reason to go and catch Pokemon. This couple are going to give you hints about Pokemon they want to see. Doesn't have to be a lot, but it gives me a reason to go and catch Pokemon. Perrin. Oh, Perrin. This should have been, and I think I addressed this last week, we should have just been hunting cryptids. Thank you, whoever it was in the comment who gave me the word cryptids. I read that and I was like, yes, that's exactly what I was looking for. Cryptids! We should have been going out and searching for these strange phenomena of Pokemon. And we could have still done 10. We could have still done... Okay, personally, I'd have loved to see it in the wild. I'd have loved to see... Even you could do it where, same as the Milotic. Oh no, because the Milotic happens at a certain point in the story. Okay, I think for it to work, you realistically have to skip the same way that they do in the main game or in Kitakami at the moment, where you go to a locked off version of the Timeless Woods. I think you would probably do that. It's a case of go see Perrin. She says, hey, there's a thing going on in the barren wastelands. Meet me there. Go up, meet Perrin. Okay, we're going to wait here until dawn on a clear day. Cut to you at dawn in a clear day in the barren wastelands. You've got to go around, search for this thing. And you take a bunch of pictures on your way. And personally, I'd love it if you took pictures and instead of it just saying, oh, this Pokemon has been added to the machine, it gives you a little bit of information about it. It's like, oh, that's a Psyduck. Psyduck, what we can see is it's jumping into the water. Isn't it funny the way they swim? Very little, because we're designing this. We're designing the Pokemon to do certain actions anyway, and they can just be on little loops. It doesn't have to be intricate because realistically, we're not going to spend that much time there. Going to go around, see everything, see that it's all doing the same thing over and over again, which isn't unrealistic for animals. Sure, they do the same thing over and over again. And then you find that one cryptid that you've been looking for. Turns out it's not real, but we got a picture, we can prove it. And then Perrin gets more and more frustrated because, again, I love her story. The idea that she's lost something along the way. She's lost the art of it all. And she started getting bogged down in doing it right rather than doing what felt right. Beautiful story. But I like the idea that she needs to find the wonder again, and that's why she's looking for the cryptids. And it's just proving to her over and over again of, okay, maybe there is no wonder left in the world. These photographs look great, but it doesn't capture anything. There's nothing there for me. And then Blood Moon Ursa Luna shows up, and it's like, my life has meaning again.
Mm.
Because I think if you're going to take photos, especially in the Pokemon world, it's got to be about the discovery. You bring it back to the theme of the game. It's got to be about discovery. Why do we take photographs? Because we get to catch Pokemon in their real life habitat. That's why to make the sneaking mechanic work. We'll throw that one in there. So you got to sneak up on these Pokemon to see them in their actual habitat and get to see them behaving as they would in the wild. Yeah, that's one of the main changes I'd make.
Okay, I think one of my issues, I think, with the DLC is the fact that you can, by doing it at the end of the game, you can just rush through it and miss a load of the things that obviously they want you to explore. So what I would have it is that when you get there, you can't go up the mountain yet, and the hub that you start at is almost okay, now that you're here, here's where you get all the side quests. So you've got the ogre people, you've got the ogre clan, you've got Nemona's parents that are apparently out there. You've got the lovey-dovey couple, like you say, who's asking you to track down certain Pokemon. You've got we've just spoken about what's the name? What's the photographer? Perrin. You've got her going, okay, these are the 10 photos that I want you to take. And all of those take place on the outskirts of the mountain. And it forces you to then go, okay, I've now got reasons to go out and do all these different things right now. Because the issue they've got is that a lot of them little things that you can do are, well, Perrin's is just one area. But the lovey-dovey couple is one Pokemon that you can't even get in that area either. You've got the Ogre Clan, which are hidden around the area, but again, it's not really clear where they are. I had to follow a guide to find them because it was taking forever. And what they should have done is they should have done what they did with the base game, which is one of the things that Scarlet and Violet got right, is you get to the academy and then suddenly Arvin, Penny, and Nemona are like, look at all the great things you can do on the map. And suddenly the map looks populated because you've got this big map, you've got 18 things to do, and you can do them in any order. But what is good is you see things and catch Pokemon and do things on the way to each of these areas and then go on detours. And that's what they should have done in Scarlet, in the DLC. You should have got to that hub area, and they should have gone, okay, this is great. Ogerpon, if you want to track down that's up there. You've then got the rich couple going, oh, we're going to explore these different areas, see if you can find us all. You've got the lovey-dovey couple going, you know what, these are the 10 Pokemon we want to see. And you get little circles on the map to go and find the Pokemon somewhere in those circles. Then you talk to Perrin. I want to take these 10 photos of these Pokemon. They're all in these little circles. And suddenly you've got this map populated at the very start of all these exciting things that you can go out and do that, again, reward you for going out and exploring. And hopefully there's enough life in the game where, okay, I'm going to make a beeline for this one to take a photo. I'm halfway there. Oh, there's a terrestrialization den over there. Oh, there's a terrestrialized wild Pokemon over there. There's a random house or a random hut or a random NPC. And constantly you are getting driven off to these other things that you can do that you can do that you didn't even realize you can do. And suddenly the game isn't any more populated, but you've made it feel like it's more populated. It's more lived in, because suddenly on the map you can see that there is so much to do. And I've not really changed anything there outside of what you've already suggested and we spoke about last week of Perrin just like spread what she does out and just highlighting the different points of interest of things that you can do and just making it so that actually feels like a lived-in area, which you don't get at the moment. It's one village, a handful of signs, and it's just populated with Pokemon.
Yes.
So that's what I'd do.
Other little things, I would make the Loyal 3 roaming.
Oh, why? Yes! That is
maybe not even necessarily
fix.
across the entire region, but similar to the way they did with the Galarian birds.
Yeah.
They are in a specific area, but will run around or fly around that entire area.
Yeah.
So you've got to go explore to find them. That should have been a thing.
Agreed. Okay. I love that idea. Absolutely. Go on.
It's a shame that there is a mechanic to rebuild. You get to basically rebuild Kitakami's main temple, I think.
The shrine. So you have to pay $1 million. I've done it. $1 million poker dollars to rebuild a shrine to get an outfit.
Okay, so you've done it. What do you get to see the shrine improve?
There's such an underwhelming quest. I can't even remember. I think you do. I think you get up there and the shrine is exactly the same as the shrine that was destroyed. Like, it's the same model, and the whole premise is it's good for tourism, so we want to rebuild it, and that's it.
Right. Okay. I don't know.
It's not a fun side. It's not a fun side quest. It is, and it's made even worse by the fact that you get $1 million poker dollars. You talk to the bloke, and he doesn't go, "Oh, do you want to hand over the $1 million?" It's, "No, do you want to hand over 10,000 or 100,000?" And you have to do it 10 times. They have to go into the menu, select it. He gives you some. Like, the temple rebuilding thing, again, should have been implemented in a better way. Maybe it's going out and getting materials or something like that. Rather than
considering there's already materials in the game, that makes sense.
Like,
we're going
to
I know. Why do we have these materials that are just used for TMs? Let them be available for different things.
Yeah. It's the materials were implemented phenomenally in Legends Arceus because it created a cycle of, I'm running out of items, I need to go out into the wild to do all these different things, to then craft more items that allow me to get more Pokemon. Oh, I'm running out of items, I need to get the items to craft more items to get more Pokemon. That the cycle in that game, the gameplay loop was absolutely fantastic. The gameplay loop in this is pretty much non-existent because it's like, okay, I need a TM, I'll go out and get a couple of Pokemon. But you can find the TMs in the wild. And then some of the items you'll have already gotten playing the story anyway. So there's no gameplay loop with the items. And outside of people that are trying to get TMs for competitive, the items just sit in the inventory and don't really do anything. Mm-hmm. Like you say, like, okay, we need wood to build this. Go and track down timber because they're carrying the planks of wood. Oh, we need some rocks for gravel. Go and track down these Geodudes. Like, the Pokemon are there, the mechanics are there. They just need to be implemented in a fun and exciting way.
And we do have something like this because you get to trade in the Bronzor and Sinistea chips you get to trade them for the item that involves Charcadet.
Mm-hmm.
So they have got it implemented in there that you can trade these things away. So yeah, we need Geodude dust because it makes for a good mortar. Go defeat a bunch of Geodude. Yeah, no, that would have been really cool. And the thing is as well, you're talking about Legends Arceus, the other thing it did, I think acceptably, is the town improved due to your influence. And I think a game that's so focused on xenophobia. I've actually written a video about this now, about how the game is actually about xenophobia. Fantastic. And how the Loyal 3 represent that. And that's why they come back to life, is because Carmine has had all these feelings stirred up. So when she goes to visit the shrine with you, that's why they come back. Because it's this hatred of outsiders.
I like it. Okay.
So it would have been really cool to have, if the story is about the village overcoming that thought, it would have been really cool to have a side mission where basically the Loyal 3 come back, they trash the place, and you've got to rebuild it with Ogerpon's help. So Ogerpon acts as your guide around Kitakami because it's lived there forever. So it knows where the Geodudes are. It knows where the Milotics are. It knows where all these really interesting Pokemon are. So it can guide you as much as rather than just follow you around. And then that gives the village even more reason to be like, oh yeah, we were wrong. Not only are outsiders not bad, but this ogre has helped to rebuild a town that has turned its back on it for hundreds of years. We'll throw our hands up. We were wrong in that case. And again, you're not implementing any new mechanics. It's all there. It's all available to you.
It just needs to be implemented in a better way, whether or not that's more engaging, more fun, giving you more to do. Like, we're not breaking the wheel here. We are literally just adding extra spokes to it.
Yeah.
That Game Freak could do.
It's about giving the players a reason to do the things that are available to them.
Yeah.
Give me a reason to go catch Pokemon, because I won't do it on my own because I don't find it that fun. But if I'm doing it to build towards something else, then it gives it meaning. It gives it purpose. It gives me a reason to want to do it.
Yeah. And like, I feel like another thing that needs to be implemented is if you're going to have all these side quests in Pokemon, give us a list. Like Legends Arceus, it was one of the great things about seeing that list and realizing how far you've come alongside seeing the developments to the town that you are playing a part in. And by doing that, it also encourages you to track down the missing things that you are doing. Like Legends Arceus, when, you know, you have a list and it's like, okay, I've done the first 20, but I'm missing number 17. And then trying to figure out, okay, where do I find this? And just that reward and that gameplay loop of, okay, there's more to do. But the problem with this piece of DLC is, like, I'm having to look up guides of what is there to do in the DLC, and then going down this list and going, yeah, I've done. Oh, that's really not worth my time, but I feel like I need to do it for completion's sake. Yet if it was in a list, I'd feel like, okay, look at all the things I've accomplished. And the great thing about that then is when I then look at this piece of DLC, it might shift my opinion and going, actually, there was a lot to do in this.
Was there, though? Do you not think that this would just highlight how little there is to do?
Yeah, I think it would, to be quite honest with you, because you've got the handful of main stories, Perrin's Quest, a handful of other ones. Like, you're probably looking at a list of less than 20. Maybe I'm probably being generous there. I'm probably looking at about 10 to 15, depending on whether or not they wanted to do ogre ousting and split it out into 3. Like, it depends on how far they wanted to. They could make it look busy if they wanted to by splitting things down, like each of the ogre people being a separate one, for example. But I think it's a valid point that it would make you realize, oh, there wasn't actually that much to do in this piece of DLC.
I think it needs more side quests.
Agreed.
There's not a lot to find out in Kitakami.
Yeah.
Again, there's Pokemon to find, but that comes back to what we were talking about earlier. There's not enough new Pokemon to find, and we have been playing this forever, so the old Pokemon aren't as interesting to us. So it's almost like the main draw of the area, there isn't one anymore.
Yeah.
So give me a reason. If this is going to be a game that can be played by new people and played by people who've played the games for every single generation, give me something to do out there. Give me a reason to go there.
You know, earlier on you mentioned a season pass. And you know what? A season pass could actually work really well for Pokemon. And I don't want to give Game Freak ideas to make more money, but a year-long season pass of, okay, here's new terror raids that you can only access if you're part of the season pass. Here's new costumes you can only access if you're part of the season pass. Here's new side quests that you can... Like, they could implement so much to constantly get people coming back for more. I don't want them to do it, but, like, for me, that's something that I think that Pokemon needs, because the last 2 generations have been very much, here's the hit, and you've got it, there's the launch, and then we'll release a little bit of DLC, and a little bit more DLC, and then you've only got the raids, really, and shiny hunting if you're into that. to keep you coming back for more. And I feel like Pokemon would surely the Pokemon company would benefit from, let's just keep them coming back to this game over and over and over again.
What the problem is, though, is cash flow the issue at Game Freak?
For Game Freak, I think
because that's the only reason. It's the only reason you should implement a season pass, is to be like, hey, we're going to now pay developers to keep working on this game, to keep making it better. And that's what you're paying for, is the round clock, make this game better for the next 3 years. Do you think cash flow is the problem at Game Freak, though?
Okay. The Pokemon company has enough money. It has enough money, okay? But we know that the games that Game Freak make, that's the money they get, isn't it? For, okay, we sold X amount of units, that's the money we've got to reinvest. I don't think there is much movement between the Pokemon company down to Game Freak and vice versa. My argument would be, okay, with more money coming in, they can then hire more developers, which would then release some of the pressure that they obviously have. That works, I think, in a gaming model like Fortnite, where you don't have a new game coming out every 3 years on a release cycle. So while I think it could be implemented at Game Freak, I just don't think its current working model supports it.
Yeah.
Because most of the people that are probably involved in the DLC are already working on whatever remake there is, whatever Gen 10 is, whatever's coming out next. So therefore, the DLC just needs to be a put what you can in, get it launched, move on to the next thing, and it'll be the same for the next piece of DLC, the next game of do what you can in the time limit you have, push it out, and it'll probably still sell.
Of course it will.
Which is such a, like, and I've seen people talk about, well, why didn't they do the Call of Duty model where they have, I think, 3 teams that rotate. So you as a person get a new game every year, but the game that is released this year, you're the team that's worked on that, you're not going to get a game from that team for another 3 years. So I don't get why they don't do something similar. You almost have a remake team, a core team, and then a side core team. And then you can have staff move between them, depending on skill set and what they want to develop and things like that.
So there is an idea in game development, I think it was at a developers conference a couple of years ago, that somebody suggested that you should never over-deliver. Don't give your audiences too much. Don't let them think that lots is possible, because then you're going to have to hit that every single time. If you under-deliver, you can maintain profit margins, because people are stupid and people will buy games regardless. So you don't have to put everything into it, because they'll buy it anyway.
Yeah.
I think Game Freak very much take that model. I think we saw a little bit of this with Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, when the not the prototype paper, but the artwork.
Yes.
What's the word I'm looking for here? Concept art.
Yes.
It very much looked like they were trying to build a completely different game. And this is all speculative, obviously, but it does appear that they were pulled back and told, no. You do not get to make that game. And again, that Digino Gaming episode that I was talking about earlier, that brought up the fact that, Heart Gold and Soul Silver was built on about 12 people. I believe that's the quote I remember. I haven't got it in front of me, unfortunately. They were talking about a game that was made for Pokemon the movie 2000. And it was a 3D game with 2D sprites. Think Doom. So you walked around and you saw the Pokemon in the world, and you got to interact with them, and you solved puzzles. You solved puzzles, and it had 1 million downloads, and Pokemon turned around and went, no. No, too good. Get rid. Too good. Get rid. It's going to hurt our image. We don't like it. And they pulled it. So it's not unreasonable for Pokemon, for Game Freak, to say, no, I don't want other companies touching it, because then we'll have to work harder.
I think that's a very valid criticism of Game Freak. Of you, I think if you go in with low expectations, I don't think you'd be disappointed with any Pokemon game. And I think part of my frustration, and I'm sure it's part of your frustration as well, as you see what could be like one of not just the best selling franchises, but one of the most critically acclaimed. And I've said this before, like when it comes to RPG mechanics, Game Freak is always playing like catch up. Why are they not the leaders of creature catching RPG games, of leading the way, of making these worlds feel lived in and magical, and they don't? And I think part of my frustration is the fact that the trailers always, like, it is typical of Game Freak. They overpromise and underdeliver. And I don't think I'd be as frustrated if they didn't overpromise in their trailers. Okay. If they were just like, yeah, this is what you get, I'd be like, oh, okay, right. Well, I know what it is. Therefore, I'm going to wait till it comes down in price to a value that I think is acceptable for what I'm going to get. But you don't get that. What you get is a trailer that sells you on something that isn't in the game. And we've spoken about that in both the main game review and the DLC. Of the trailers are very good at hiding the limitations and showing things that aren't there.
I think the difficulty is that we love this franchise. And it may not sound like it, but as somebody who's also a bit of a Sonic fan, and will turn around and say all Sonic fans hate Sonic.
Yes.
It's because it's a case of, like, I love it so much that I know you can do good things with it. So when you don't, it hurts that much more.
Yeah.
When I play other games and see what is possible, what other studios are capable of producing, and then you look back at a franchise that's nearly had 30 years of my life, and I've been a fanboy since day dot, and it just keeps hurting me. Feels like being in a bit of an abusive relationship.
Yeah.
And it hurts because I love it.
Yes. Yeah. It's just to kind of like wrap up this discussion point. I think, like, Game Freak could and should be doing better, but there are reasons they're not doing it, because like a company of this potential caliber should be making home runs every game release. They like, and I don't know if, again, I think that 99 of the employees at Game Freak are probably frustrated because they don't have the resource, whether or not that's time, technology, the people. I don't know, but I've got a feeling that upper management are just like, yeah, get it out, hit those deadlines, keep that machine, printing money.
And is a part of that a case of upper management being from an era where it's like, no, we made one of the best Pokemon games ever, and there was a dozen of us. Get on with it.
True. Potentially, yeah. You've got more money than we ever had. You've got more staff than we ever had. You've got better platforms to deliver this on in easier ways. Like, quit your belly aching.
But, yeah, if you can't produce something under that circumstances, that's on you, surely.
Yeah,
but the reality of that situation is that's just not how it works. You can't build a game of AAA standard on 170 people. You just can't.
No.
You can make a really cool indie game And I think it brings us nicely onto our Devil's Advocate section. If you want to use an indie team size, make indie games. Go back to 2D games.
Yeah. It does nicely bring us onto the Devil's Advocate that the next Pokemon game should be 2D. For those of you that haven't listened to the Devil's Advocate section, basically we pick an area that is very grey and murky, but basically one of us debates one side, one of us debates the other side to decide who's right and who's wrong. This week we're debating whether or not the next Pokemon game should be in 2D. I'm going to be arguing that it should be in 2D. Connor is going to be arguing that it should not be in 2D. By 2D, are we agreeing it's like pixel art?
I will allow it to be pixel art rather than a pixel game. So by which I will allow sort of 2.5D.
Okay.
To be part of your argument rather than take it from myself. As much as I'd love to.
Okay. I think I'm going to approach this, I think, just to make it as easy to follow as possible, that I'm gravitating more towards the sprite graphics that we had of the Game Boy Advance DS era.
Okay. See,
Yeah?
I'm trying to offer you Octonauts here.
You're trying to what, sorry?
I'm trying to offer you Octonaut style, which you've argued again and again is what you want for Pokemon.
So we're counting that as 2.5D, yeah?
I would say that's 2.5D.
Okay, right. Okay, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. Yeah, okay, fine. Let's do that. So I'll start this argument, I think, mainly because we've both made the point that it would be good to go back to this. So I feel like I have the easiest starting point, but as we've always seen, just because you've got that easier starting point doesn't mean you're gonna win this argument. So so I'm gonna argue that it should return to 2D. And the reason being is that 2D I'm gonna argue this from a technical point of view, it requires less stuff. It requires less resource. It requires less effort. Pokemon and Game Freak's development team have proven time and time again that they can develop great looking 2D sprite games. We look at Black and White and Black and White 2, and the animation of the sprites and the fact that, unlike the current 3D models where they just stand there and just do, oh, look, I'm a polywheel just doing this, the 2D sprites have a lot of life and a lot of movement and vibrance and emotion connected with them because they feel so alive and they can produce a better quality game with less input.
So it's a lovely idea that because I agree with you, Gen 5 sprites and things, they looked amazing. We've seen what people can do now with sprite art on their own. People can build entire Pokedexes of sprite art. They'll take 3D models, they'll animate them. All looks great. Still a step backwards, though. Pokemon, if you look at its earliest games, the 2D sprites were not great. Talking like Red and Green, they weren't good.
Oh, yeah. They were ugly.
But by Generation 5, they look phenomenal. Phenomenal. I really can't word today. It's hard. Their break into 3D came so much later than every other franchise. Again, Sonic fan. Sonic's break into 3D was okay. It wasn't great. You look at Mario's break into 3D. It was okay. It wasn't great. A lot of these games had to break into 3D. Now, Pokemon had relatively smooth break into 3D. X and Y looked pretty good, actually. Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire holds up. The Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee looks great.
Agreed.
And we've now seen with Scarlet and Violet, the textures on these models can really make them feel so alive. They've never looked better. What's missing is the animation. What's missing is the little spark that brings the Pokemon to life. And you could go back to sprite artwork and go back to saying, okay, it lifting its leg and opening its jaw is enough for me. Or we could hope that the next games really start animating these Pokemon and really make them feel alive when they're in battle, when they're in the wild. I'm not going to lie, seeing Graveler rolling around in Legends Arceus was really freaking cool. Watching Spheal roll down a hill was really freaking cool. And you're not going to get that experience in 2D. Being able to see Pokemon from all angles, I think, makes them more tangible. So I don't think the next step is to go backwards. It's to go forwards. Take what we already have and animate it to feel more alive.
I mean, Game Freak are stepping backwards. I don't know if you've seen some of the graphics, but they already look pixelated in the latest release. So they are going backwards. But I don't necessarily see it as a step backwards. I see it as an evolution and a return to form. I can imagine the trailer now, and it doesn't even have to be... While I agree that maybe the mainline game should stay 3D, I can argue that point. I feel like not all Pokemon games need to be 3D. I believe there is a set of fans that would love to see 2D, and I can see the trailer for it now, just in my head, just envisioning it like return to how it all started, playing on people's nostalgia, and you show, Red walking along and then Gold walking along, and then it's like a new 2D game for a new era, and you take all the lessons that you've learned from the new Pokemon games and you implement it into 2D. So it's not stepping backwards, it's an evolution of the 2D games that we had. So all the 2D games had very few overworld Pokemon. When you did have them, they were statics, or they were just like you could talk to them. This allows you to see the 2D Pokemon like roaming around in the patches of grass. It allows you to have ride Pokemon. So, instead of using fly and you come back down, you literally zoom out of this sprite map and you can see all the little sprites bouncing around and you can fly over it. And I don't feel like stepping backwards into 2D means that we have to sacrifice some of the quality. What we have is a new way to show these new Pokemon. So what we don't do is just go, okay, we go back to Generation 5 and we only have Mons from Gen 1 to Gen 5. No, we look at the Gen 6, 7, 8, and 9 Pokemon that never had sprites, and we go, okay, let's show these new Pokemon in a new way. We've seen them as 3D models, but how do they now look as sprites? Yes, you've kind of got sprites in Pokemon Home, but they're not pixelated sprite. I'm talking about true square boxes, and you animate a lot of the new Pokemon to show them in a brand new format. Going to 2D isn't a step backwards, it's a way to acknowledge the improvements that have been made by jumping to 3D, but bringing those improvements to where it started.
I think your problem is the amount of audience you're going to receive from it. So, do you know what the highest grossing animated film of all time is?
No.
It's The Lion King. The remake.
No, go away.
It's the Lion King remake. Okay?
No!
And the reason it made that much money is, it played on our nostalgia, but it was also the newer audiences going to watch it. Because kids won't stand for it these days. They won't go for pixels. They won't go for hand-drawn. Everything needs to be in 3D because that's the world they live in. That's the world we are in now. And I think you'll have a hard time selling a pixel Pokemon game to the masses in today's day and age. Yeah, me and you will buy it. I'll even be excited about it. I won't sugarcoat it. But I don't think it'll have the same appeal as mainline Pokemon games. And at that point, is it not just wasted resources? When we could be using those same developers who you're going to have in to build this game anyway, make the 3D better.
So you're absolutely right. We're going to struggle with mass appeal and mass adoption because it's on the Switch. Just by being on the Switch, you're limiting the amount of people that have access to that console and therefore have access to that game. So we don't release the next Pokemon game, the next 2D Pokemon game on the Switch. We release it on mobile. Mobile transcends consoles. It allows everyone has a mobile phone. Suddenly you've got that mass adoption, and who doesn't love Pokemon on a mobile phone? Just look at Pokemon Go. It got people back into Pokemon that had neglected it, had forgotten about it, had moved on. People who thought Pokemon was, it's for kids. Suddenly, as an adult, I've got this game with Pokemon and I'm out and about catching these creatures. People, the mass audience, the people that, wouldn't touch a mainline Pokemon game, would touch it if it was on mobile and it played into their nostalgia. And suddenly on a mobile game, 2D isn't seen as a negative. A lot of games on the App Store that you see now are 2D because they are easy to create compared to a 3D game. They are a lot of the time accessible. 3D, you have the issues of, okay, I've got to rotate a camera, I've got to move a person on top of several buttons on either side, and mobile keeps it really simple. So literally all you need to do at that point is literally A and B, up, down, left, and right, and a start and plus.
So where's your microtransactions?
The I'm glad you brought me onto this. So if we are implementing microtransactions, I would argue that you have I'm trying to think of, is it a game by life service or a live game service? I can't remember the name of it, where you start off with something small and you constantly build and develop and adapt to it. So literally you start it and go, you're in Kanto. Fantastic. Oh, right, you want to do Johto. That's an extra couple of quid. Oh, you want to do Kalos next. That's a couple of quid. Oh, you don't want to, worry about battling trainers to get money. Well, you buy in-game currency. Okay, right, you started the game and you don't want those Pokemon to run away. Oh, well, if you want, you can buy this pack with loads of Ultra Balls. And you can see this happening. You know that gaming companies do this. They're absolute nightmares for it. Oh, right. Yeah, and I'm not advocating this, by the way. I'm just saying.
No, this is you saying this is the direction that Pokemon should go. They should put it on mobile. They should take it back to 2D, put it on mobile, and introduce microtransactions. Carry on digging that hole, boy. Go on.
Sure. You know what? I'm gonna go full in on this now. You know what most mobile games do? They do a cooldown of, oh, well, you've used up all your energy, and therefore you can't play for another 24 hours unless you invest money into it, unless you pay for those gems, those coins, whatever it is. You want to heal at a Pokemon Center? It's 1 per day. If you want to heal more, you're going to have to pay up. Suddenly, Game Freak have got a shed load of money coming in from this game because people, both new and old, are going to love this game and they're going to play it. And I think that's my closing argument.
He wants to put microtransactions in Pokemon. I just want 3D animations to be better. Who do you think won?
Love it. I think we're both in agreement though. We would both love a 2D.
Oh 2D yeah,
game,
absolutely.
But none of the microtransactions, please.
No, none of the above.
And I have played some of the older Pokemon games on my mobile. And
it works perfectly.
Really,
I think it's a valid way to do it. The reason I brought up the microtransactions is because I don't think you could sell a mobile game to investors that didn't have microtransactions.
Agreed. I think it'd be very difficult. It's been done, but they are so rare nowadays.
Like, I could see you getting. I would even pay full price for it. But when I say full price, that's the other thing as well. Would you pay £30 or would you pay 50?
Because if it's on a mobile,
I'm talking about whether they released it on Switch, whether they released it on mobile, whatever. So instead of doing microtransactions, you do a one-off payment.
Okay.
Would you pay £30 or £50 for a brand new Pokemon game, a full story, full game, but it was in 2D rather than 3D?
Yeah, I would happily pay 30, but I'm not gonna lie. Having a sprite-based game, it almost limits how far you can push that monetary value, because I think some people see it as, oh no, this is cheap compared to a 3D game. Why should I therefore pay?
And it's the same issue of animation is for children. And that's one of the problems, because I don't think that much less work really would go into a 2D game than would a 3D game. Considering now that they've got a lot of the Pokemon models all set up and things like that. And most of that's done outside of house anyway. So sure, you don't have to rig all the character models and do all the human animations. Well, there is obviously less work in a sprite-based game. But I don't think the value of losing £20 or $30 per download is worth it. Especially if you're already taking a cut to the amount of people who would pick it up.
Yeah. I think I think the issue of a 2D game is if you release it on the Switch, you've already got that. You've got less people that can buy it. Sorry, less people can buy it because they haven't got the console, but also there's a limit of how much money you can charge for people before people think, it's not worth that much. And on the flip side, if you wanted to do it on mobile, where I think you can get more people have access to it and more people are acceptable of 2D games, there's no, like, the majority of people would go to the App Store and go, wait, all these other games are either free on Apple Arcade that I pay for a small amount each month, or they're usually like 69 pence to $1.99, and then there's suddenly Pokemon that's like £30 because you don't want the microtransactions. People aren't going to buy it, so the alternative is it's a free Pokemon game with a shed load of microtransactions, which, you know, I'm fully open that most free games that I play on mobile, outside of maybe an initial lump sum at the start of a couple of quid, I don't pay anything. I'm one of those freeloaders. So they're gonna get, like, so it means that it puts that burden on other people, the whales that are just gonna go, oh yeah, I'm gonna keep putting money into this game. And I think that hurts the game, unfortunately, because it has all those predatory practices that I just do not agree with.
Yeah. I mean, bringing it back to Octopath Traveler, it was originally like sold for £50. That was its original price tag.
Right.
But
do
it is already on sale for $37.49.
Which is still a good value. I feel like it's still a good value for them, like selling a game at that
The game's
price.
not out yet.
Wait, what?
Octopath Traveler 2, this is.
Oh, it's 2. Right. I thought you were on about the first one then.
No. The 2 is not even out yet, and it's already on sale.
Oh, right. That doesn't bode well then, does it? 2D games?
Yeah. And I think that's because I think they've done that in a certain way to be like, hey, this is a £50 worth of game. It is worth that.
Yeah.
But we know you'll never pay that, so we'll do it for around 35.
A clever tactic. Conor, sorry to break the fourth wall, but I need to shoot off in a second.
You're all good, mate. So no guessing game this week.
No guessing game this week. Have you got anything that you want to plug, though?
So I have written a script. There is a video coming out very soon about the Loyal 3, where they come from, how they come back to life, what they represent for the village, why they steal the masks they do, what they wanted the masks for in the first place. Answers a lot of questions that I had.
Wow. It's good to see that you're coming back to YouTube. If you're listening to this podcast and you're not subscribed, Captain Fidget, links are down below. Go ahead and do it for plenty of theory videos and in-depth analysis. Is that about fair?
Yes. Also, I completely lied. Octopath Traveler came out on the 24th of February. I don't know why I said it's because you can download demos. Anyway, carry on. Somebody's going to be really mad at me because I said it was on sale and it's not out yet. It is out. I lied.
There we go. We if we make mistakes, we correct ourselves on this podcast. And if you've got a comment or question, you can reach us by leaving a comment on our podcast on YouTube, by emailing goldenrodpod@gmail.com, by leaving it on our Discord channel, by using the hashtag goldenrodpod on Twitter. Conor, where can we find you?
You can find me on my YouTube channel at Captain Fidget or on Twitter at CapFidget.
And Ben, you can find me as Professor Hoenn Gaming on YouTube and Professor Hoenn on Twitter. That's the show for this week. If you've gotten this far, you're just a top dollar, aren't you? We'll be back next Friday for another week of Pokemon podcast content.
See ya!